Oh boy, Rob Zombie's The Munsters. I've been hearing about this one for a while, and I probably should have listened to all the other reviewers on YouTube. Unfortunately, I'm brick fucking stupid, and I decided to watch it anyway. Okay, actually, that's not entirely the case. The big thing that attracted me to it was that it was a Rob Zombie picture, and while I may not be the psychotic fanboy I was in high school, I still kind of have a soft spot for Rob Zombie. Or at least his movies, to be specific. I haven't really paid attention to his music since Educated Horses, and based on the album titles alone, it sounds like I'm not missing a whole lot. Like, good God, you want to talk about word salad. I mean, what even is the last album he put out? Like, fucking Lunar Eclipse Conspiracy, Treadmill, the Pineapple Under the Sea, Monster Mash, or something? I don't fucking... But his movies I have generally loved. At least when he's dealing with his own material, that is to say. Like, I love The House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects. I love 31. Lords of Salem was okay. The Haunted World of El Super Beasto, I kind of feel guilty about owning now that I'm married, and considering how many titties are in that movie. But then we get to the remakes, and this is where we kind of have to be a little more critical, because holy goddamn hell, I can't believe that this is what you came up with when you were given the task of remaking Halloween. People who know me personally know that I was kind of an apologist, I was kind of a champion for the original 2007 remake of Halloween, but you know, that was a long time ago. That was basically 15 years ago, and I've gotten older and I've gotten wiser, and upon retrospect, yeah, that movie sucked. I don't know what I was thinking, other than, it's Rob Zombie! It can't be bad if Rob Zombie made it! When I found out he was remaking The Munsters, you'll understand when I was thinking, well, I don't know. I mean, it is a Rob Zombie movie, but I remember what happened when he remade Halloween. I think The Munsters is going to be just as bad, maybe. Or maybe this will be a pleasant surprise. I mean, the internet hates it, but the internet hates everything, so... I do also have to confess, as long as I'm confessing about stuff, that outside the theme song, I never really liked The Munsters all that much. That theme song was badass, man, but then you get into the actual show, and for the life of me, I just could never get into it. I don't know, I guess it's because I'm more of an Addams Family kind of guy in the long run. I think I've established that at some point, but yeah, I wasn't really huge on The Munsters. The fact I even watched this movie in the first place says more about Rob Zombie than it does for The Munsters, so there's that. So what did I think of Rob Zombie's attempt at The Munsters? Well, yeah, this was pretty bad. I can put up with bad jokes when they come from like a Halloween-themed dad joke book, you know, which is a lot of this show's sense of humor, but yeah, this was pretty bad. One thing I'm willing to give this movie, one thing. Sherry Moon Zombie isn't nearly as shrill in this movie as she usually is in her other movies. And I get the feeling that that's kind of the case with at least her character in the House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects, etc. But then you get to some of her other movies and yeah, that's kind of Sherry Moon Zombie. She's kind of shrill, but in this movie she's actually kind of subdued. And that's pretty much the one positive I have about this movie. Then you get to the guy playing Herman Munster, and phew, boy, like, what were they going for with this? Like, was he supposed to be drunk the entire time? Was he supposed to be a swinging cat, as they called him back then? I mean, I guess you could do worse, but I don't know. I just found his performance more distracting than anything else. The movie itself is very colorful, and by which I mean there's a lot of like saturation in the movie. Like, the greens are very green, the blues are very blue, etc., etc. I'm not sure how much of this is a reference to like Technicolor film where like, yeah, it's in color, a really, really intense, obnoxious color. I also thought it was kind of a reference to that horror director from like the 70s and maybe the 80s. What was that movie he made? I want to say Suspiria. It's the one with like the witches, and it has that song that plays, little da 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 every time that song plays. You already know someone's gonna die and something bad is gonna happen. I think that was, I'm totally blanking out on his name, but I haven't ruled out the possibility it's a reference to that guy's style of directing and cinematography. Or hell, maybe Rob Zombie just felt like this movie needed to be an obnoxious splatter of color on the screen. I don't know. All I can really say for sure is when my blind ass notices that this movie is way too intense on the color, you've accomplished something. Something good? Something bad? Fuck if I know, but you definitely accomplished something. And as I alluded to previously, yeah, I did not finish this movie. I tried, but the one thing I have to say about this movie more than anything else is that it's honestly kind of boring. This movie doesn't really feel like a movie. If anything, this feels like it's background noise in another movie or a TV show when all the characters are sitting on the couch watching TV. Or if they're going to the drive-thru and watching a movie, this would be the thing on screen. That's kind of what this feels like. Having a meandering pace is one of those things where it either sets the mood perfectly or it takes me out of it, and it's hard to have an exact balance, but this movie definitely didn't find it for me personally. Overall, Rob Zombie has done worse, but he's done so much better. And maybe I'm showing my Rob Zombie bias with this score to some degree, but all the same, I don't really have half hats in my system, so I'm going to be a little generous and maybe give it 2 hats out of 4.